Oh, that is so good. I sure love our Unity singers. And here we are, this second Sunday in July. It's just going so fast.
Flying by.
Excuse me. And we're continuing in our alignment with this very powerful, pragmatic, and profound book. Sometimes I want to throw this book across the room.
I have.
You know?
I have thrown it across the room.
White fragility, why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism, Robin DiAngelo. This is a powerful book study as we're living in a very powerful time.
Mm-hmm.
And what I know when it comes to unspoken truth, there are things in our lives we don't want to talk about. It can be the ex. It could be that really nasty job. It could be sexual issues. It could be money issues. It could be growing up issues. It could be yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why those things are so hard to speak about is because sometimes we perceive that in the long run it's easier just to keep them sealed below the surface and pretend they're not there.
It's true. Well, for me, when I am carrying around an unspoken truth, it's because there is a negative emotion attached to it that usually has to do with my contribution in the scenario. So if it's an ex, what did I do to contribute to the demise of that relationship? If it's a relationship in peril, my brother is one of them. Like, I don't talk about my brother because there is so much. It's so painful. And if I'm honest, there is so much work to be done around it. So this is an instance where it's just easier. It takes too much to do the self-evaluation and accept the journey of healing, of self-acceptance and forgiveness, and then ownership and incorporation of, yeah, I did that really bad thing, or I was shamed, or it's not who I want to be. So those are the areas that I stop talking about things because it is a journey and it feels horrible in the process of really ferreting out all of that stuff, which is exactly what we're talking about this week.
It sure is. It sure is. And so let's start with this quote, Robin DiAngelo, who is a sociologist, and she's brought much wisdom to writing this book that we're doing a book study. White people in North America live in a society that is deeply separate and unequal by race. And white people are the beneficiaries of that separation and inequity. Boy,
That's when I want to throw the book across the room.
like, I don't want to admit to this. And this is what white fragility is all about. It's like dancing on the head of, if I don't talk about it, maybe it won't upset the apple cart and I don't have to feel the feelings of shame, of ignorance, because a lot of this, it's so effective. The system of racism is so effective that the system perpetuates itself by not speaking truth, not speaking about this fact. And I, for one, being a Unity minister, believe in equality, believe in us working towards oneness. I certainly know that we're all one in God. And I want to live that truth. And the only way I can live that truth is when I become aware of another truth that I've never even been able to speak before, to allow it to come forth. And then feel the feelings that come along with that.
Yeah. I'm curious what some of your feelings have been this week.
Well, okay,
I just
so
want to know that I'm not alone.
I get to tell on us that when we're preparing for this talk this week, we didn't talk the normal couple of times during the week. We talked almost every day this week. Because what we realize as we're reading and working this, on these Sundays, we're not covering everything that's talked about in this book. We're just going to highlight something.
Yeah.
But the feelings that I've had are a real sadness, because I feel like I've let people I really care about down. And as I examine my own life to see how my apathy, my inactivity, and turning my eye away from a blatant truth.
Sure.
And so it makes me feel a little small, a little insignificant, and so that's shame.
Yeah. That's what I've been feeling. I've been feeling shame and anger. And shame because there is so much that I think inherently I knew, but it was serving me in ways that I couldn't even possibly begin to imagine. Things that have just been easy for me as a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman in the world. I know somewhere that there was a door that wasn't opening as easily for a woman of color in the same ways that I have. And I've been really angry. And we talked about this feeling coming up in our book study, because while the system is rigged with racism, our system, I don't remember giving permission in this lifetime for me, right? So it's just been like in 1977, this person named Maggie was born, and she was born into a system that she cannot change by herself. But it was the time that I was born, it was the era that I was raised, it's the education system, the infrastructure of our country. And as we have been on the track of evolving, raising our consciousness, shifting in our consciousness, and I'm going to say that that's largely due to our immediate connection with the supercomputer that we all carry around in our back pocket. We know what's going on, so it's gotten to the point where we can't ignore it anymore. The disgust, the shame, the anger is finding out, using that supercomputer, all of the things that racism bleeds into, every pun intended. And it's painful. It's really painful to experience. So Robin DiAngelo talks about the leading edge. And in Unity, we would consider ourselves to be progressive individuals. We're also largely white individuals, in case that's a surprise to anybody. But as the leading edge people, we have a duty to move forward and to even lead the charge rather than rest on our laurels. So in our next quote, she says, "White progressives do indeed uphold and perpetrate racism, but our defensiveness and our certitude make it virtually impossible to explain to us how we do so." This was one of the first quotes. There's been a lot of quotes. There's a lot of wisdom that it's very unsettling, and I do want to throw the book across the room a lot of the time. I identify as a white progressive. I have experiences and multicultural experiences and relationships and connections and. And Robin DiAngelo is saying, good for you. Now, what are you doing with it? Get out there and do more, because I, as a white progressive, tend to put all of my life experiences and relationships out in front of me, and then to get through to the level of understanding of racism and how it runs through every vein of our country. You got to get through all of that, and they show up as excuses. It is when I'm able to recognize that I have had a multitude of experiences in my life and set them aside instead of right in front of me, that I'm able to listen deeply, connect more deeply, and realize that while all of this over here has been nice, the work has really yet to be begun.
And that work is an indication. I'm so grateful we have the tools in Unity, because our fifth principle is taking action. You know, we know there's one power and one presence, God. We know that we're created in that image and likeness of God. We have all this power to do whatever we choose to do, our faculty. And then what we pray, what we think, what we think creates our experience. And we know that our thought has power.
Right.
The words we say have power. And we pray and we meditate every day, and that gives us that opportunity to ground and connect and to feel what we need to feel. But all of that's for naught if we don't do something about it, to be it, to live it, to juice it. And that is what we're calling to join us in this activity of doing whatever we need to do. And this, being a progressive, being white, being in this society, it's important to recognize that what we're talking about is the system of racism that always is in every society. So it's in ours. Not racism as bad or evil or a bad person who does things. That's not the kind of racism we're talking about, which is really being prejudiced. Racism is what enculturates us in race. And what we have not spent much time is, what is the white race? What's the culture of white race? And when we look at the culture of white race, we see that on every level, in education, in opportunity, in work, in entertainment, that white race has an exorbitant amount of privilege over all others. And since we say, and we know that our founding fathers said, we're all created equally, but we're not living that equality. And it's ours to find our way of seeing what we can do to change that. The racism isn't going to go away. That's just the system of how humans work. But how are we going to bring equality no matter what? And that's powerful. I'd like to turn to this adage, this great wisdom that comes from this 12-step recovery community, We're only as sick as our secrets. I think that's why taking a moment and looking at the unspoken truth. Mm-hmm. Because if we're holding any secret, that is going to be the root of our pain. It's going to be the root of our unrest, of our disease, of all the isms. Mm-hmm. And when we can get to a place in our life where we no longer harbor any secrets, then we're free. And if I'm truly free, you're truly free. Because we are not equal, and no one has equality unless we're all equal.
Right. And, you know, I really appreciate this quote. It struck and stuck with me when I started first being aware of the Al-Anon program. And because you come in shamed and cloaked in what we don't share, what we aren't honest about in our lives. And finding the room to start saying some truth. Finding a sacred place in a safe place where I can share my truth started the process of healing. And that isn't just in a 12-step room. That is anywhere you can create that and trusted relationships and bonds in your life. So be it with your best friend or with your spouse or with your parents or your siblings, whoever it is, we have to start being both willing to listen and speak the truth as we find it out. I mean, I feel exhausted at the end of every single day and have this week because this book has got my memories stirred. Mm-hmm. And it's dropping bombs in my lap that I did not think applied to me, and how I've been influenced by the entertainment industry, how I've been influenced by my world leaders, who have been influenced by the books that I read because the editors who say they're okay to be published for my demographic are also white. So it's just churning up all of this stuff. And the reason that we have spoken so frequently, besides that we adore one another, is because this is a safe place to start owning some of those things, those aha, or those, oh, I can't believe I did that when I was 11. And it starts to air it out. The power of the spoken word. This is another opportunity to bring in a unity teaching. It starts to change the vibration of the frequency that we all live and operate in. So as long as we are willing and aware and consciously moving forward and speaking the truth, we are capable of applying change. And it is absolutely critical, and it's why things are moving so fast now, because so many people are speaking out loud their awareness and their healing potential, and it's palpable every day, everywhere we go. Wouldn't you agree?
I would. And what you're talking about, Maggie, is how important it is to love ourselves through this process. Mm-hmm. That no matter what, if we're loving ourselves into forgiveness, we're loving ourselves, because we can't change the past. The past is. Mm-hmm. But if we can love ourselves the tough love,
right,
then this gives us an opportunity to have some relief.
Yes.
And even though it's not easy to move through the process of becoming aware of this stuff, love will be the tool that will allow us to do that.
One bit at a time, one step, one word, one intention at a time. And Mother Teresa says this just perfectly. We cannot do great things in this world. We can only do little things with great love. And it's going to require self-forgiveness and self-love, no doubt. And my call and encouragement is just keep swimming. Like, we've started the journey as a human race. We have started the journey. And those of us that are out ahead a little further, you're going to get tired and you're going to have to pull harder and swim harder to pull the rest of us stragglers along, wherever you fall in the mix. And just keeping it in mind that we doing little things with the intention and the expression of love as an accumulation of the one is where we will see great things getting done and being healed.
And this is so powerful. I had that opportunity in 1989 where I got to spend some time with Mother Teresa. And what I know from her is that she had that powerful spiritual awakening. And the awakening she had was seeing you and everyone as Jesus. And of course, she can't see it in others if she wasn't Jesus as well. And then living every moment of her life fully in knowing you're Jesus, you're Jesus, you're Jesus. And then operating in that great love. One person at a time. Because if we have the focus, the knowing that we're going to change the world, that's about as far as that gets. Because where do you start? We're not going to do great things and change the world. We are going to do one thing at a time. We're going to take a step in love. And then we're going to follow it with a step in love. And after a while, we've walked from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean. Just doing one step at a time. That way we're going to cover our entire nation with a lot of little great love. And one practice you might consider doing is waking up in the morning, looking in the mirror, and saying, I love you. Now that might cause you to giggle. It might cause you to yell and scream. It might be you look in the mirror and you can't even form the words. But if we can love ourselves, then we know the very same great love that we can love George Floyd. We can love the officers that participated in the death of George Floyd, all as Jesus, all as love. And how do we reconcile that? Because love restores all things. Love renews all things. Love heals all things. We are born in love. And when we can begin to see the light of love shining in our eyes, it's very easy for us to look at every other person we meet with that same love. And we don't need to go up to every person we meet and go, I love you. We might get locked up. Or you might start dating a whole bunch of people. The thing is, we can hold love in our heart, and it's communicated. And the tough love is being to love the people who've slighted you, the people who've caused you harm, the people who continue to say things that don't make you feel good. That could be a boss, or it could be your brother, or it could be anyone in your life. Now is the time. We are on a important precipice in our development in consciousness. If you know spiral dynamics, we are moving on the spiral. But it's not going to come to us. It's not going to fall in our lap and go, oh, look. It's only going to come by our willingness to take another step in love. And it begins by loving ourselves.
Amen.
And so, again, we have another reading, and this one is a prayer that J. MacDonald wrote and was published in the Prayers for 1,000 Years. And it goes like this. Our deepest hope, our most tender prayer, is that we learn to listen. May we listen to one another in openness and mercy. May we listen to plants and animals in wonder and respect. May we listen to our own hearts in love and forgiveness. May we listen to God in quietness and awe. And in this listening, which is boundless in its beauty, may we find the wisdom to cooperate. And with a healing spirit, a divine spirit, who beckons us into peace and community and creativity. We do not ask for a perfect world. We ask for a better world. We ask for deep listening.
Step out on the water, release your faith. Every step is stronger. Step out on the water.